It's the God beat. It's the God beat. It's the God beat. It's the God beat. It's the God. It's the God beat. It's the God beat. It's the God beat. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Echo. All right. All right. All right. What's up, folks? What's up, Jesse? Giving an official hello. How you doing today, Jess?
Good, man. Good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just was at the bus stop for a little bit, got some groceries, hung out, did some stuff around the house.
All right. All
Good
right.
day.
All right. Well, welcome everybody out there. Live stream land. I know it's not one of the best weeks. I'm really tired today, Jesse. Just so you know, it's been a rough week. Um, with Milton coming through, and we got spared a lot of the worst of it, but just the preparation and um working where I work also, it's we have generators, we have sandbags, we have all of these items we had to um we had to prepare, and just working extra hours, the stress of it all, family, doing that whole thing was just it was a lot this week. And I'm thankful we came through, but at the same time, I do feel exhausted. So I know Kurt's on. Kurt and KNB, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up, Trevor? What's up, Jesse?
Hey, Kurt.
Right. So yeah, I was just starting off and telling how I'm a little worn out this week. So I'm going to keep it as short as I can. Well, that, if you guys want to talk, I'll go 15 to 30 today. But I don't want to have the low energy. Got to have some more energy than I have right here. How you doing, Kurt? And I haven't spoken to you this week, other than by
Um,
text.
I'm good. Tired. I have low energy.
You're like me. Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, well, I just first, I guess I want to say, just talk a little bit about Milton. Just to say, our prayers are with those who were more adversely affected. By the way, is the beat too loud? Let me know if the beat's too loud. Always want to check on that.
I don't hear it at
I
all.
You
don't hear
don't?
a beat at all.
Oh, okay. Let me get that going. Yeah, I could always forget to share the screen. Yeah, because we need that signature. We need the signature God beat. All right, here it comes. Let me know if it's too loud. It's
No, that's good. That's good.
the God beat. So yeah, so I'm gonna actually start the edit from here in the official version. So let's start again. What's up, Jesse? What's up, Kurt? Thank you everybody for joining us here at the People's Mic, part of the Value Exchange Fellowship. We are here after a week of we're based in Florida, so it's been a week and in the path of Milton. It went a lot south of us, so we were spared the worst. So our prayers go out to the families that were more adversely affected, also those that are still being affected by Helen. We want to send our prayers out. But for us, despite it passing much further south, we're about an hour north of Tampa, and it passed, I guess, an hour south of Tampa. I don't know if it's an hour south, but south of Tampa. And we were all spared the worst. But at the same time, we didn't know that until, 36 hours before. And in that time running up to it, it was very nerve-wracking, um, preparing, buying the groceries, putting borders on the windows, finding people to do that. Not sure if we should over-prepare or under-prepare, making sure that the family was all taken care of. And then me working where I work, I'm not going to mention the establishment, but we work in a major chain home and home furnishing, sorry, home repair. Just think of the biggest home repair places, establishments you could think of. So we were getting literally truckloads and truckloads of 250-pound generators that we had to lift into every car, plywood, all of this going out. So just taking us out of, I work in the paint department, taking paint department, nobody was buying paint. So we're doing all of that. And then, you know, and then it came, and then it was just, you know, we didn't think it was going to be, we knew it wasn't going to be as bad, but still, you know, it was strong enough to take down trees. And it was just a week of anxiety and not only mental strain, but physical strain. Kurt, how was it for you? How did the week of Milton go for you?
Well, since I've been through this, it wasn't as stressful. It was the first time since Charlie that one was headed right to us. But aside from that, we always get spared. So I wasn't that worried. But you know, you never know. So there's some. And then what was different this time is also because I'm also taking care of my dad as well. So I have to be concerned about that aspect of it. So from that standpoint, it's exhausting. Today was somewhat exhausting because at my we had to we evacuated my camp where I work, and they came back late this evening, so I stayed late and been there all day, and so that has me tired. But I say all that knowing that I was truly, truly blessed and fortunate. I mean, my power didn't even go out. It blipped twice. And so there are people who still don't have power, don't have water, can't get out their house, even if they didn't get flooded. There's some of my coworkers who stuck at home because there's power lines and trees down, so they can't get out, and they don't have power.
Wow.
So on the other hand, the weather is awesome.
Yeah, it's
And
cooled down a lot.
really cool and nice breeze. It's calm and tranquil and peaceful here. But there are people who are still struggling and suffering, you know, and so you feel kind of ungrateful to mention our little setbacks. There's nothing compared to what other people have gone through and are still going through from both Helene and Milton. So I'm thankful, and I'm also thoughtful.
Amen.
About
Amen.
those, you know, who's going through a lot worse.
Yeah, amen to that. Yeah, and I also had to. I guess the main stressing factor was the fact that my also taking care of aging parents, and want to keep them safe more than anything else. So I echo that, and we know that. Kurt and my brother-in-law, he is, and we look out for each other's families, and that's the elderly are always the ones that you need to worry about the most. So but yeah, so you know, thankfully it's past us, and you know, hopefully, I mean, it's happening. You know, it was 2 weeks ago we had Helen, you know, 2 weeks before this. So these are just coming and coming. And Jesse, well, what was your perspective of Milton from where you are? I don't know. I just got my power back last night as well, so I didn't really care the damage and what was happening except for the last couple of hours last night. Uh, how was you? You had any family down here? Anything you had to be concerned about, Jesse?
Yeah, my aunt's in Miami. So she was out of the way of it. It wasn't like a direct hit or anything, but you know, it was still a tropical storm over there. So we kept in touch with her, made sure everything was okay. And yeah, just watching it from a distance, you know, sort of powerless, but it's nice to be informed regardless.
Amen. Amen. And we usually start with a prayer, but I've been ending with a prayer on these the people's mic, because I feel like the prayer flows better once we get into the action. And I don't know, is there I know we speak about this, Kurt, about praying when you do everything. I mean, Sean speaks about that. You pray when you get in the car, you pray when you get out the car, you pray when you walk into the store, you pray when you walk out, you know, it's like um so I don't know. Is there like a guideline for when and how often the prayers should be, Kurt, the bishop?
Nah,
I thought I'll hear an answer similar to that one.
Nah, that's bad. Nah.
But I do miss because we haven't. So tomorrow was supposed to be Salt. Tonight, you guys should have been out there. But Salt has been postponed for the first time since we've been involved, and we just send our prayers out to the our homeless neighbors that they are not too adversely impacted. They are very resilient, but at the same time, you know, the challenges, we don't want to put any more of a burden on them than they already have. But Salt is canceled for this weekend. The People's Mic at Salt is canceled. And so just want to put that out there that usually this would be the Salt weekend. Any word, Kurt, on when it might be rescheduled?
I don't think they just. I haven't heard anything. I assume they're just gonna take it back up next month.
Okay.
Because they
And
do
also-
because they are those. It's a trailer, the shower trailer. They get. So I'm not sure how that works, but I know they drive down from Orlando with it. And so yeah. So
Okay.
it's not something that they can just reschedule as far as I know. But this is also unprecedented, so I don't know. I really wish we could have made an even extra effort to go because of what happened, you know. Because I can only imagine, but I don't know what the roads are like on the way there, and those kind of things. I'm not sure. And then there are people who are affected, who may be in Orlando, and they might be stuck. They might not be able to drive. They might not have power. They might. So those are the factors. And I don't know how it impacted Trinity Cafe, which is we partner with, that help feed the unsheltered folks there, and they do it with class, and they get to sit down with a menu and get served, and like a restaurant. I mean, it is. And so so I don't know how they were impacted as well.
Yeah, I actually didn't know if I would make it this weekend if they did have it, but I was hoping that they would have it because, you know, this is probably the time they need it most, or maybe they have other needs. But I also heard, Kurt, that LifeSpring canceled their service for tomorrow. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, they did.
So yeah, everybody's been, you know, there's been some sort of impact. But you know who didn't close down? The capitalist corporation where I work. They managed to stay open. Well, they closed down early the day before, and the day of they were closed. No, they didn't ever close down. They just had 2 half days. I mean, capitalism continues. I know, you know, we're on either side of the capitalism argument, but it just goes to show. I went back to work today, and but here's the thing I would say about that. I'm not anti-capitalist. I always have to say that when I say this, because people were in need. It's an essential service. I found out that they were open during the pandemic. It is an essential service. So there's no knocking the corporation that I work for. People are coming in and thanking us for being open. People are coming in and they need generators. This could be someone's lifeline. And people are coming in and they need, you know, just a fan. And all these things are selling out. People are coming in and they need plywood. I got all my plywood from this establishment. So capitalism has some really impressive benefits in that it fulfills the needs based on the needs of the community and the people who work there. You know, I got to say this, Kurt, maybe you experienced this before, and Jesse, you and I experienced this in New York. I'm working, being active at McCarran, but it's the first, I guess, crisis that I've had down here where I had that sense of community. All of my coworkers, we were banded together and we were going above and beyond. You know, working in the rain, lifting these heavy things into people's trucks. When they can't fit, some of them, these generators are huge, and some of them they can't fit, and we're trying to squeeze it, and we're working because we know how badly they need it. We're showing up when some people had to evacuate. They're calling me in, can you come in? They're calling others in, can you come in? Because such and such couldn't make it. And that instills a sense of community. And then here with the family, we're checking in on each other, making sure that our family is safe, making sure that everybody is okay, offering plywood. By the way, Kurt, just so you know, I know you're one of the donors to the Value Exchange, formerly Spread Love FM. So the funds that I would usually use for salt, I put that towards buying plywood, which it's not a lot, but it's there. And that's for emergency needs, usually in the terms of food. We bought Bibles, we bought other things, but it came in very useful. So that was a part of the community, us banding together and making sure that everybody's taken care of. My neighbor, who's not too, I haven't met any of my neighbors until about a week ago. And they're checking in on us. I lent one of them, they needed an extension cord because these generators need a bunch of cords. And I saw her driving by and she's talking to me saying how she's been affected. So all of these things, it was my first kind of taste of community down here with my aunts and my family, my brother-in-law, my sister, my cousins, just making sure that everybody's okay. So that's something that I had a lot of doses of in New York, from the 77 blackout to 9/11 to the 2002 blackout, to the pandemic, to the George Floyd protests. Those are really 5 really memorable points of activism that I will never forget, that kind of built the fabric of what New York is to me. And this is the first down here. So Kurt, yeah, how did you feel about that? Was this something that you felt brought this community closer?
I didn't feel that. Of course, I mean, not really, not directly. Now, I work at a prison and we evacuated, right? So I didn't really get to experience that from that standpoint. And I also work in the ER, but I didn't work the ER this week. But I know a number of them had to spend nights there and camp out. And you have a team A and team B. The lat with Helene, I did work. I didn't have to camp out, but I did work one of those nights. And so I experienced a little bit of it, but not as much. And in part because where you work makes sense. Or if I had been in the ER, I would experience some of that more, So I just did the one night or 2 nights. I think I did 2 nights. But I also did it when we only got glanced by Helene. It didn't cause that much trouble for us. We had nice breeze for Helene. We did. But there are people who were on the coast that were impacted. Pine Island, all out there that got flooded, but they're so far out. We really didn't see too many. I didn't see too many of them, so I didn't experience that. And then here, little things here and there. Stopping at the gas station and people talking because we have long lines at the gas station and things like that. Experience a little bit of that, but again, I've been through this multiple times. So the only difference is this time was the first time it was in a long time that it was headed straight for us. Aside from that, it was same old same. Every hurricane, not every, but every major hurricane threat, you get used to all the toilet paper being gone, all the water being gone, all the certain gas being gone like the day or two before, or having long lines of gas and that. But because we don't have, New York is unique, relatively speaking, in terms of public transportation is for everybody, rich, poor. That's not socioeconomic in New York. It is here. Public transportation is very socioeconomic because most people have cars. So that in itself, people aren't walking much. So that in itself takes away the opportunity for the level of community that you probably would feel in New York. You don't feel it as much here because everybody got vehicles. So it's only when they congregate at places like where you're at, where a home improvement kind of place, where obviously that's a very important spot for this kind of thing. Or if you're in other places where a lot of people are gathering, yet you'll experience it. Whereas here it's built in kind of isolation. So, but yeah, I did. You will see neighbors talk to each other, and people say, "Hey, how did you fare?" There's a whole lot of how did you during the storm? There's a whole lot of a common thing to bond over for the next few days or weeks until the election rips it all apart. Because nobody's really talking about at this moment. You're not feeling the stress and strain of the hostility of election. So there is that.
True. And by the way, remember I shared the story and I shared it on the podcast about the coworker who I had a falling out with. We made up, and yeah, but we're not talking about politics. So but he said he was sorry, and I said I was sorry, but because of the storm, he called, he called me, I didn't answer, and I called him back, and but we made up before that, leading up to the storm. But anyway, but yes, I would say this, and Jesse, you could attest to this. Forming that sense of community, and because of the logistics of New York versus the logistics of almost anywhere else, that is something to take note of, because my same friend who I made up with yesterday, when I was talking to him, he said it in the same way I said it to you, Kurt, and you said no, kind of like no. He said the same thing to me. He was like, wow, one thing is that when things get rough, this is quoting my coworker, white coworker, MAGA supporter, who I had a falling out with, but who we love each other. But as of late, we've been very tensed. He said to me, oh yeah, but the good thing is that people really come together down here. And I did see that, but I wasn't to the level of how people came together for my past experiences in New York. And it was only for, I guess, mostly for that reason that Kurt mentioned, is because we are all on top of each other in New York. We share these spaces. We're not in cars. We're not self-isolated. And that's something I miss New York for that. Jesse, how is it like, do you find community is a challenge in Newburgh because of is there self-isolation there? I guess is the first question. You're at the bus stop, so I imagine you have a very social location in which to observe these social dynamics. How is it in Newburgh?
Newburgh's walkable. The city of Newburgh is walkable. The town of Newburgh really isn't. So in the town, it's very much the same. Everyone leaves their house, gets in their car, gets out of their car, goes to work, goes in the grocery store, gets back in their car. There isn't immediate neighbors, but that's about it. And I over the course of the past year and a half have made a concerted effort to try and build community, because in my opinion, every person is the center of their own community, and I've been trying to build mine as much as possible, and that involves being at the bus stop for many hours. I mean, this past week I've probably spent 20 plus hours at the bus stop, just hanging out, moving around, saying hello to this person, that person, just being available, talking with people. So I do my very best to be a community builder myself. But yeah, it's very easy to just simply be isolated even in Newburgh. Most people have cars, and it's the amount of traffic of foot traffic is a tiny fraction of New York City. Of course, depending on where you're at in New York, some places are more busy than others, but it's a challenge always.
So we're three former New Yorkers. Jesse, you're originally from Newburgh, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you're still New York, so yeah, I guess we could say that statement. And we are three former New Yorkers talking about the difference between, New York City, and Jesse lived in New York City long enough and has been through the most monumental social movement, where came out of the most isolating crisis that we had. I just want to jump back there because Jesse, you remember how we went from the most isolated world during the pandemic to the most communal world during the social protests. Did you jump? I know I'm jumping around, but did you jump directly? Like for me, I was doing deliveries the whole time. I was an essential worker, and the streets are isolated. But even during my deliveries, stay 6 feet apart from everybody. It was kind of the birth of non-contact deliveries. And even I remember, because there was no vaccine, and please, all you vaccine deniers, don't start. But there was no vaccine, so we didn't want to. I would literally see somebody in the street. There were so few, and as we walked towards each other, we would move to the side, right? And then came this George Floyd tragedy, and all of that went out the window. And I marched in the biggest marches I've ever marched, where we were on top of each other with no vaccines. You remember, how was that for you? That from that move from most isolated to most communal. What was your memory of that?
Well, it was a major shock. My goodness. I mean, yeah, because it was I didn't mind the sort of isolation of the thing. I'm sort of a homebody by nature, so I was perfectly comfortable to just sit at in my house and play video games and stay within a 1 block radius for a couple of months, and then all of a sudden exploding out into the streets. I mean, the fact that the dichotomy was such an enormous part of the thing. And that was so important. I remember, I think it was the Juneteenth march where we went to Barclays Center up to the old Seneca Village in Central Park. And I mean, I'd look up on the fire escapes, there's people playing saxophones, people dancing, like just, the community was so real. Everyone was so nice. Everyone was saying, hello, how you doing? It went from like you said, walking, like moving across the street from another person walking towards you to just like, hello, how are you doing? Good to see you. The whole city was a community, and New York really comes together like that in times of crisis. It was so painful to me to watch that slowly fade. And that really was a struggle for me. That was really painful.
Yeah. And so my first March, I was doing deliveries every day, because our deliveries intensified exponentially because people were on lockdown and we had to get their groceries for them. And we had a team. I had a delivery company, so we had a team of 5 or 6 drivers going from Westchester to Staten Island. And but I was in my van and I would do no contact deliveries. But when that happened, at first I was like, because that wasn't really something that I wanted to do, march like you. I'm a homebody and I wanted to be isolated in my van, and I was good. But I was so angry when I saw that video, and then seeing the people protest. And it was maybe 3 or 4 days in, when there was this, I'm listening. So as I'm a part of the soundtrack of that time was me listening to 107.5 BLS. Was it one of, I forgot the station, 98.7 KISS. I can't remember which one. One of the urban stations. And it was just protest song after protest song, and announcing where the helicopters are and where the people are marching. And it was one day I finished my day early, like 2 o'clock. And I saw the helicopters from I'm in South Williamsburg, and I saw the helicopters, and they were talking about, the march is on Fulton Avenue. And I was home, and I was like, okay, is this the day I'm going to go out? And I got in the van. I drove as close as I could, and I came into the largest march that I've ever been a part of. And the first photo that I took was that you see it as it's on a lot of my graphics, with this woman holding up one fist and one sign saying silence equals violence. That was the first photo I took, and it's still the most impactful photo. But that what you just mentioned there, Jesse, on that first march, we were walking down, we came down, was it not Utica, but we made a left on Fulton. And as we're walking down Fulton Avenue, and this is when I named it the Brooklyn's Canyon of Heroes. As we know, Broadway is whenever the Yankees or somebody wins, that's the Canyon of Heroes for the sports heroes. But it was Brooklyn's Canyon of Heroes, because as we started walking down, all the way from where Utica Avenue is, and we got to near to Berkeley, we got to Fort Greene. That's even at Utica, there were people coming out their windows, and we know this is such a thing that was happening every single day. People coming out their windows and cheering. You can't mirror that anywhere else because New York is so unique with the fire escapes and the balconies. And as you said, Jesse, that's something I will never forget. And it happened over and over. We did it every Friday at McCarran. And as you said, the painful thing, and I think this is part of the reason why we're still fighting to try to recapture that, to see that slowly fade away, was and is still painful. Not only because of the camaraderie in the community, and all of the beautiful grassroots organizations that came out of it, but because there's an actual fight for justice here that needs bodies. And to see that fade away, and Jesse and I speak of, and Kurt, I know I'll get you back in this because I know me and Jesse are going off about something that we were a part of, but I want to move on to something else. But as the protests started to fade down from thousands to hundreds to dozens, to a handful, Jesse and I especially, would still every single day be out there. And Jesse has this line in his attention song where he says he's speaking to the empty buildings, empty windows. And that literally was us. It's kind of like it's a sad, in a way, testament to apathy, to people just moving on. And there we are with the very same mic, and I had my speaking just like I am now. This is why I'm standing now, because it kind of brings back that energy. And I would be speaking to the empty buildings while people went back to their lives and walking their dogs. And so there's a fight going on, and I feel like we can't forget. And it's almost like, Jesse, tell me if you feel, and this is almost hard to say, it's almost like something bad is going to happen again, whether it's a insurrection because Trump loses, or a slow demise of democracy because Trump wins. We know at some point this moment, whether it's at the same degree, will come back again. And it's almost like we are those forgotten soldiers who are still holding down the guard post after the war's been over. We're still there with our rifle marching, and that's us. That's us. So I think we should move on. Unless
Interesting, I was already gone from New York. And I left New York in 1991. And then I would just come back for summers. And then eventually I would just come back for a week or two at a time. I've been outside of New York longer than I've been in New York, but of course I grew up there, so my formative years are there. So the impact of it is, I'm a New Yorker, period. I'm a New Yorker forever. But I didn't experience 9/11. In fact, I was flying the day of 9/11. I flew that morning from Alabama.
Wow. I didn't know that. You told me that. You did tell me that. Go ahead.
From Florida to Alabama. So I'm in Alabama at the time because I had a class and a work that I didn't even end up going to. I flew 8 something. So it must have happened while I was in the air. I must have been among the last airplanes.
8:10.
Went to bed, missed the class, woke up around noon, and all hell had broken loose. And I was so I missed all that, and it was just jarring. But anyway, so I didn't get to experience New York that way, except through you guys hearing what was going on. And then same thing with 9/11. I'm not 9/11. Same thing with George Floyd and with COVID. I was outside, so I've never experienced. So to hear what you're saying, I could only imagine it. It sounds magical and mythical, but I could imagine it. I could imagine it. The people, because New Yorkers can be quite amazing, and it's wow. I got a taste of it to what you guys what you're explaining, what you're describing, and what you were just talking about. I've never heard anybody talk about it like this, but as you're saying it, I could see it, I could smell it, I could feel it. But I've never experienced it. It's still theoretical. Man, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's a part of. Thank you for saying that, because
And you know what? And I can imagine. So whenever I come back home, whenever I go back to New York, driving. Usually I'm coming either up 78 or I'm coming up Turnpike. But about 100 miles out or so, you'll see the Twin Towers.
Twin Towers, yes, right in New Jersey.
And so my first time coming back, and mind you, I was in New York in 2000. I was about to go to the Twin Towers. I've never been to the top of them. Never. I've been to the top of the Empire State. Never been to the top of the Twin Towers. And me and Denise were going to go. And whatever the price was, I was like, that's ridiculous. I ain't doing it. I ain't paying that. And we didn't. Had no idea that was our last time. No idea. So even now, whenever I'm driving there and I don't see the Twin Towers, I tear up. Or when you're going across the Brooklyn Bridge, supposed to be on the left. I'm Brooklyn. It's supposed to be on the left, flank left, and it's not there. I mean, I appreciate the whatever you call it now, Freedom Tower, whatever. I don't know what are we calling it?
Freedom Tower, yeah.
Okay, and I appreciate the silhouette of the Twin Towers in it. But it's just not the same. And then, so anyway, I a little bit of what you were saying as the feeling was going away, as people were going back to their lives after the whole George Floyd thing. I imagine it's a kind of feeling of when I see those Twin Towers not there. That's how I was, what you were describing is kind of what I was feeling, what I was liking it to, because I've not experienced child experience, as you were saying it. I can imagine it slipping away, and the memory of that camaraderie and the power of it, knowing what you're going, that it's like, and people don't care. And they have the capacity to care.
Yeah.
I'm too cold to say it that way, but I could imagine that some of those feelings give you a similar loss, a similar sadness, a similar grief, maybe.
Yeah. Amen to that. Just to jump off onto the 9/11, because I seen the tower fall, but to that, I didn't know you shared that same memory, because every time we drove down to Maryland, Florida, that was the I-95, and I drove back out as a kid in my 20s, even younger in my teens, when Dad would drive us back. That's very same spot, Curtis, probably what you're talking about, right before you get to the New Jersey Science Spear Museum, whatever it is. A few miles before that, that's when you first see, I think that's the way, maybe a little bit further back. But that time from New Jersey, when you first see the Twin Towers, I always, without skipping a beat, would start singing Frank Sinatra.
Yes.
You too?
Yes.
No.
Always. Every time.
Wow, that's crazy. That's insane.
Wow. Every time.
So we got exactly the same memory.
Oh wow.
That's insane. I don't believe that. It's the first person that I heard say that. And so yeah, and I used to sit at the promenade, riding my bike. Twin Towers was a magical, and I know now it's me and Kurt and Jesse can't relate. So it's, but the Twin Towers, I mean, you can, I'm sure you can, but anyway, the Twin Towers was and I went to the top, but even before, that was my favorite structure in the city, and to lose that, I would say this, Kurt, that's a bigger sense of loss, because I know what we lost at McCarran, we can get it back. The Twin Towers, no, and the way it came down, because I saw it fall, it was jarring, and it was, there wasn't really a movement around it. There was fear. There was just months, weeks, and a year. It was a year. I don't think I didn't cry a day for that first year, after it fell. I was traumatized. Even to this day, there's still trauma there. So that's different loss. I didn't really mourn for the loss of our activism, because it's there. It's there. The fact that Jesse and I are still fighting, we know it's there. We know it's just bubbling under the surface. In fact, again, depending on who wins and who loses, it's may determine how quickly we need to get back to that level of activism, or are we going to boil like this toad, the frog, on a slowly heating hot frying pan, which, by the way, I found out isn't true.
Correct.
Oh, you're good. You know that too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so, I don't know, Jesse, you want to throw anything else in here about this, so we could just move on to the next short announcement that I want to make.
Well, for me, when it comes toward, particularly towards the activism side of the thing, um, during those protests, because like it took me like a week and a half to get out there, because at first it was crazy. Like those first
Mm-hmm.
2 nights in New York City were
Oh yeah,
crazy.
it's madness.
And do you remember the fireworks? There were fireworks
At McCarran, you
for
mean?
two. No, throughout the city, there were 2 months of fireworks
Oh,
before the
right,
Fourth.
because of pandemic.
Every night,
Yes, yes,
every night
yes,
during the
yes,
pandemic, every
yes.
night in New York City, every night, boom, 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 fireworks going off. I could barely sleep for months
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
before 4th of July. And on 4th of July, there was nothing.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't
It
realize
was
that.
crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Months of fireworks every night
What was the
throughout
reason?
the
Just people
city.
were just bored. It was just kids causing trouble, right? Or was it?
Yeah, yeah. It was it. So people were going all the way to Pennsylvania, getting fireworks, bringing them back, launching them every time.
Yeah, yeah.
But during that time, I particularly went to my parents, and I was because they were around in the '60s, civil rights movement, and I talked with them, and I was like, "What happened?
Mm,
What?
mm,
Why did that die out? What was the situation with that? And what I don't want is for my, I don't have kids, but my nephews maybe to come up to me in 10, 20 years and be like, what happened? Why, what were you doing? you
mm.
know, during this whole time. And I
Mm.
want to be able to say that I was doing something, that I have something to show for the time period in the intervals between the unrest, because yeah, you're right, it's going to come back around at some point for some reason.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, but yeah, that just to echo your memory of the fireworks. It was just crazy. And remember the cars with that was, I mean, before even the pandemic, there was this whole thing with the cars and the loud exhaust and how the mayor was trying to shut those down. And then that just intensified. It was just like noise. It was like anarchy, and murders were going up. It was just a whole thing. Um, so when George Floyd happened, it was like the city just kind of, the people took back the city, in a way for the progressives. For the conservatives, it was the opposite. They saw anarchy, they saw Antifa, which was actually a component of this protest, but not a part of our protests. We knew who were the interlopers, who were agitators. It wasn't us, and that was something that I think I admired about our movement, is that it was a little bit more sophisticated, to what was happening around the world. And when you look at Europe, how Antifa, or you look at Seattle, with the World Environmental Meeting, whatever they call that, how they would infiltrate and really agitate. But right away with the George Floyd protest, and I was doing it, I was like, black people, don't let the agitators take the narrative. I was shouting it on all my social media, even when had actual marches and you would see them happen. I would say, "This is not us." I had friends who were, not not um, didn't have a history of activism, and not that I had an intensive history, but I knew enough to say that black people, we are not the ones when we protest to be making artistic graffiti. That's not just us. That's hipster protesting, which, for lack of a better word, we are not the ones to be dressed. Even though I'm dressed in black, and it became the moniker to dress in black, we were not the ones that would go to protest and dress in black. We are not the ones to protest and go after police unprovoked. We would protest, and I would tell, and that was the echo, and it wasn't just me. Everybody was saying, we are not the ones. Don't tear down your own neighborhoods. Why do you think? Because at that time, the first time I kind of really took note of that was at Barclays, and I'm like, don't do this. Don't do this. This is Fort Greene. don't tear down, don't burn down Fort Greene. And not, they kind of listened because I'm smiling because this is not something to smile for. But you remember, Jesse, most of the protests happened in Soho. The breaking into stores and looting, um, and it was just wild kids. And I said, okay, at least it's not, that's the rich people who are gentrifying. Yes, if you're going to do it, take it out of Brooklyn. And that for me was a level of maturity. Not that they should be looting anyway, but this was not happening in the past where post George Floyd, it was not about tearing down our own neighborhoods. Fort Greene survived, East Flappers survived, almost all of Brooklyn. There was not a lot of that. It ended pretty quickly. So I guess this is a good time to share some of the lessons we learned, because I think people may forget when the next thing happens that some of the things that we learned, that we did back then, just to keep it in mind, to echo to the people who are out there. You're angry, but let's have a civil, organized protest where we can express our distaste at the injustice, but do it in a way that doesn't demean. We have to love our enemies even, and loving our enemies mean refraining from being violent. We don't want to have another Rodney King, in other words. We don't want to have that. We didn't learn that. So anyway, but it's great talking. I don't think we really spoke about this publicly in the way we are speaking about it now, Jesse. We've had this discussion in person all the time, but it's good to do it on this public forum when you take into account what may happen in the coming days. Question for you, Jesse. Do you feel like you are holding on to, do you feel like it's imminent that something is going to happen again? And I know we don't want to fearmonger, but I just want to gauge your summation versus mine of what's to come.
So I'm not a doomer personally. I think that it's very easy to latch into that end is nigh kind of mentality, and I don't propagate that. What I want to do, and what I do in preparation of these events, is I read books, because my biggest issue with the George Floyd protests is the whole time I was looking for somebody to step up and lead the thing and become like an actual leader, and nobody did. People were leading the protests and leading the marches and everything, but nobody became like a face and a forefront of a movement. And largely it was, I think, because it was being run by younger people. Most of the people who were up there in front were in their 20s or even younger. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a big fan of the youths. But if you haven't read the books, when you speak, you don't know what to say, really. It ends up being somewhat shallow. And while there was wonderful things in the movement, I don't know if you remember Warriors in the Garden using the mirrors.
I missed that. You told me about that.
Were amazing. So there's wonderful pieces in the protests of artistic expression that were powerful and meaningful. But when it came time for the people to step up to the mic,
explain the mirrors. People are going to want to know what that was.
So the people in Warriors of the Garden particularly would bring these large mirrors, and we would march, and then we would stop, and people would speak into the mic. And what they did was, when there were lines of officers, they would take the mirrors and put them up to the officers, so the officers would see themselves and would be blocked. Their vision would be blocked of what was going on behind them or in front of them. They would only be able to just see the reflection of themselves in the mirrors.
Amazing.
And so, and it was just a beautiful sort of representation, because I didn't come out for like maybe 10 days or something because of how crazy the first couple of nights were. I don't really want to be a part of a lot of what that was. But when it was sustained, and when I saw what it was, I was like, this is like, I gotta be a part of this. I was whatever. I don't care. My history doesn't matter. But what I look for in the next potential movements is for the people who have read the books, who are prepared to make the speeches, because in all those speeches there was one woman Reverend Wendy Hamilton, I believe her name was. She came up from DC on that night. I think I might have sent you the audio, and she blew me away. Unbelievable. And I was like, this person, you know, of all the people who I spoke, and I love the Warriors in the Garden. I loved Unite New York. I loved all those groups, but it ended up being a lot of passion without a lot of substance, and it was unsustainable, unfortunately.
Mm. I push back a little bit on people, as you said. People try. I think to an extent that was intentional, and I actually want to read. This is what part of my announcement, and I'll save a lot of this for my podcast with my brother Jihad. Got to do better, my brother. But I actually was doing some research because there were people who tried to step up. Hawk Newsom from, you know, Black Lives Matter, Greater New York. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah, I saw him speak.
Yeah, he's still actually really way out there, but he's really extreme. But people like he was, you know, people didn't like him. Warriors in the Garden didn't like him. The other groups didn't like, you know, Black Lives Matter, Greater New York. You know, the bike warriors. What was the bike riders? I forget. Oh, I can't believe I'm forgetting the names. What was the bike rider's name?
I forget them too. But yeah, right. But again, so maybe I should rephrase and not say that nobody stepped up. What I mean is nobody was capable.
Got you.
Of uniting the groups and forming like a real
yes
because tons of people stepped up, like I said, Warriors in the Garden, Unite New York, all the individuals involved with that, they were speaking, they were doing their thing. And for a while I didn't feel like it needed a leader because there was so much sort of various pop-ups, you know. There used to be 100 events per day in New York City. 100.
Yep. Oh, I forgot. And they had it on the Instagram. The Black Lives Matter Instagram would post all of them.
Yeah, like pages and pages of events everywhere.
Wow.
Which was amazing.
It was crazy.
Yeah, right. Music events, food events, you know, silent sit-ins, you know, whatever. All these things. And it was incredible. But there wasn't, you know, eventually these things need to coalesce behind a particular vision, and that never ended up happening.
I remember what did happen, and this is similar to what I want to present here. At the very beginning, there was a call for us to state your demands about defunding the police. So I can't remember if it was Black Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter Greater New York, which there was all these subsections. And by the way, everybody just know that because I represent Black Lives Matter, that doesn't mean I'm a part of any official organization. Most of us, when we say Black Lives Matter, it's a slogan similar to MAGA. By the Black Lives Matter, let me put it this way. I got a rhyme for that. Check out the YouTube. So we are not an official part of Black Lives Matter, but there was a call because people were saying, "Oh yeah, what do you guys want? You're out there protesting, but there's no, you know, you have to be organized. You have to list your demands. You have to say this is what we want, and then if you don't do this, this is what we will do. And if you don't, so and that happened at first. And I think what you're saying, Jesse, is that needed to continue. I remember we had a couple of nights at McCarran where we would list our demands of what we want to do in the next, you know, we need to go to city council meetings, blah, blah, blah. And none of this ever happened. And I think a part of the reason, Jesse, which is what I was going to say, is and Kurt, sorry, I'm going to get Kurt to jump in. Kurt, if you want to jump in, just let us know. But part of the Black Lives Matter model is a leaderless movement.
Not decentralized.
Thank you, Kurt. Decentralized movement. And the reason that is not the reason that is key, but that's contributed to, and I think it's his strength and it's his power. But as he said, there are times when the leader is needed to motivate. We're seeing the cons, the downside of not having a leaderless, a decentralized movement. And I bring that up, and this is probably a good segue to the next segment because I do want to kind of start to wrap this up. So part of what, when you look at when Obama won, you go back to 2008, President Obama won, And many people believe that what we have right now, right here, to bring all this back home, what we have right now, right here, MAGA is a result of that backlash. It became a Tea Party. Tea Party movement became MAGA, and this is where we are today. It's about white people seeing that, oh, the writing is on the wall. In a few years, we will be no longer, the status quo will be turned upside down. The hierarchy of power will be flattened. Equality will feel more and more like oppression. And the reason I bring that up as it relates to what you mentioned with our movement is that the Tea Party was actually, that was their model, a decentralized movement. There wasn't an official organization. It wasn't an official party. It was all about highlighting conservative views like minimal taxes, smaller government, anti-Obamacare, all of these things that are still being echoed today. And people would say that the Tea Party disappeared, but other people argue that no, the Tea Party just became a part of the Republican establishment, which is now MAGA. And the reason I bring that up is because I think, so I really believe in Kurt. I don't know if you feel the same way, and I'll wrap it up so you could jump in. I really think that right now the election is 50-50, leaning slightly towards Trump, in part because of the disillusionment, the cynicism, and Jesse, you speak so much about cynicism during our days at McCarran and even after that. Cynicism specifically of Black men, how they have made us feel like, what's the point? What's the point of voting? And I feel a little bit of that myself. And what may happen because of that is we may hand over the election to Trump. He may win it with or without us, but I think that depending on how the tide is rising and the momentum is in his favor, we may lose. And when I say we, I mean the progressives. I consider myself a progressive. And I think the result of that may be the opposite of what happened with Obama, where you had a Tea Party grow out of that fear of loss, even though it's equality, that fear that it feels like oppression. And I think what the reverse will be if Trump wins is actual oppression, because there is a racist system in place. And to give the people in power, the 1%, the people who push the narrative of race, to give them that power and to know that this is their last hold on this power, to be more authoritarian, may actually have some consequences that may be either quickly apparent of the harm that is being done, or slowly, which will be even worse. I hope that it's quick, despite the harm that may come, because I think this is when I ask you, do you think it's going to happen again? I think this is where we may be headed. And if it does happen again, I think we need to have an organized party in the vein of the Tea Party, even though they call it it was more organized and more orchestrated by like the Koch brothers, the Koch brothers. I think this can be a real grassroots movement. And I think it needs to be decentralized in the same way the Tea Party was decentralized, because even, and to your point, I'll wrap it up here, Jesse, you said that to see that slowly dissipate in terms of Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, I argue that it really didn't, because a lot of people ran for office. We had the Warriors in the Garden, what's his name?
Yeah, Chiasso. Yeah, he got into town council or city council.
Yes, exactly. We have folks in Florida who grew out of not only the gun move, the students for against guns. I forgot what they call that movement, but all of these movements, the Me Too movement. I think all of this is in that same wave, decentralized, but it's been set up over the course of the years. And I think the next trigger, if we have an authoritarian president, we will have to coalesce around a decentralized model that allows us to take back. And then I'm going to just jump to the Bible about the first being the last being the first, Matthew 20, 26, and 27. And I think the people like us, and Jesse, this is why I exclude you, because you are a part of, and that's, we had this discussion last week. I think we, as Black people who have been oppressed for so many years, we have picked up skills in our daily lives, but over the course of our ancestors and generations, through civil rights movements. And not that you can't be a part of it, Jesse, but the model that we are trying to imitate, that we're trying to model our movement, is based on our ancestors fighting the oppression through 400 years. And I think that that's a part of what I think will be the next movement. Whether there's a leader or not, I think the base, the foundation has been set. And this is why I'm not just this soldier defending a empty, standing guard at an empty guard post. I think that the time will come. And a part of that, I just want to announce that we have launched this platform called the 1619party.org, where we hope that this will be one of many foundations, one of many platforms where we can come together post-election and speak about what we would do, plan, vote. And basically the mission is voting with our dollars and organizing around our actual votes to hold our public officials accountable for the things, making a list of things that we need in our community and having an organized Black vote to obtain these things. So I went on for a long time. I would like to, I'll leave the floor open to Kurt now. You haven't spoken in a while, so I know you probably have something that you would like to add.
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really. I'm actually quite enjoying it.
All right, that's cool. Jesse, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'm all about decentralized. I mean, I'm an anarchist, so I'm about it. When I look at what happened with like Chiase, I think that he got absorbed by the system, and they realized that he was starting to be somebody, and they said, "Hey, why don't you come over here with us?" And now he's happy to be at like the Met Gala and all that stuff, like taking pictures with whatever. I'm just saying.
He was talking. I saw that with his who did his outfit? Somebody
Yeah,
famous.
right. So, but more power to him. I'm happy he's doing what he's doing.
But okay, so, I know. Okay, so yeah. I mean, Rory's in the garden. I think they also were not completely behind him, because a part of our movement, we never had, at least at McCarran, we never allowed politicians to address the crowd and okay, so this goes to my final point, and this is the discussion that we're going to have on Gots to Do Better, my brother. My brother Jihad and I were co-workers, and in our last couple of episodes, I think it was at one episode back, we were talking about why not us, if not us, who, and if not now, when. And we were specifically talking about running for office. And we are continuing that discussion. But I did I did a little bit of research on what that would take. And I'll be quite honest, and we'll talk more about this on the podcast. It's so restricting, so limiting. You are literally becoming a part of the system. Whereas the Tea Party, which was not an official party, had more influence on those who decide, so like the Chiases of the world, who can actually do the work within the system. I think it's more effective to work outside of the system. And that's what the 1619 party is about. Organizing behind our vote, organizing behind our dollar, exhibiting our skills that we've acquired over the years of protesting, decades of protesting. And so I looked at that and I was like, so we're going to have a discussion about that on our next show. And I'm really leaning away from, like, we were literally saying, let's see where we could run, how we could influence things, what we can do. Can we get a city council member, a school board? Can we get this? Can we get a sheriff, a Black sheriff? I think we need those, but I think you have to have that. I don't know if I consider myself an anarchist. Definitely an activist, definitely progressive, and I don't know if it would be radical as well. Yeah, I would say radical. I'm happy to embrace that. But radical for radical change, in that this capitalist system is really doing harm, and we really need to re-examine whether, as a Black man, Black woman, whether we need to be supporting this, whether we need to be Like any black man that's voting for Trump, for me, I just ask them, why would you trust your liberty to any white man, whether he would think he's doing something for you or not? Why would you do that based on the history that they've done? And no offense to you, Jesse. I think you may agree with me or not, but I think we need to look within and then bring our issues to every voter, the Trumps, all the white, the Kamalas, and let them say, this is what we want. And now that we are a unified voting bloc, if you don't follow through, you're out. And that's where we are now. So the Chiase, yeah, he's been co-opted by the system. It seems, I shouldn't speak, but every video I see, he's that radical. Warriors in the Garden spirit is gone, as far as at least his public persona.
But I would just say, I watched the video with Darren, and I just, we just have a difference of perspective when it comes to this sort of thing, because, I hang out with the people I hang out with at the bus stop, in particular, this guy, Brian, who's sort of my main connection that helped me back into Newburgh. He's a black revolutionary and he loves Trump. Like that, I've spent many dozens of hours with this guy, and he's as legit as anybody I've ever met in my whole life. So when you go against Trump, and when you align yourself with the Democratic Party, immediately it sows division. And I'll vote a certain way depending on my perspective, but I certainly don't presume to think anything about someone because of their perspective. I just can't bring myself to say, how can you think this about this person, or how can you? It's too much for me. I have to accept the person and their perspective and just think for myself. But that's it, because I listen to Darren, and I like Darren's perspective. I can see why he thinks the way that he does, and it was very interesting that he's the one that showed up. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I was as
who's Darren?
Our cousin. Well,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I hear you about and this is a discussion we had last week about what is and when do you call out its name, and am I just going to be both sides about it, or am I going to call it out for what I think it is? Because what's the impact of not holding someone accountable? And again, Darren makes sense. His argument is well thought out, which I mentioned. However, it's on me if I think that he's missing or not seeing something. Even your friend, like in the end, the problem may not be Trump. The problem, like my question to him would be, do you believe in capitalism? Because I think many black people, many people in general, if you can't reject capitalism, then you can vote for Trump. You can vote for somebody who's working against your self-interest because you believe in looking inward. And that model is so normalized. I mean, it's the most normalized example of any institution or system, because it's way beyond our parents and parents and fathers, and it goes hundreds of years back. So it's hard to say, no, you're wrong. Somebody calls you a socialist or a communist, and you say, but you're a capitalist. That doesn't work unless you really believe that. And that's what I say now. Oh, so you believe in looking out for self first? Yeah, individual, rugged individuals. That's what's, for me, is the feeling that I get from many of the Black MAGA, that they prefer to support somebody who makes them feel like they are not freeloaders. Every man wants to feel like he's not a freeloader, that he's, that word rugged individualism is so attractive because the opposite is almost shameful. And I feel like that's capitalism. Whereas, and I don't say socialism, I say community is different. Community means that I'm looking out for you, my brother, that I'm at my expense, I'm going to support you. Right? Trump will never, ever say that because he's a capitalist, right? Ask your friend, and I love to hear what he says, because this is the question I ask any capitalist now. Ask your friend if is it possible for him to look out for somebody more than himself? If they say yes, then I ask them, I challenge them, then why are you doing this? then why are you buying this? Then do you really mean this? Because I think you have to get to that point before you can realize that you're voting against your own interests by following this capitalist system that was created by your oppressors. And that to maintain this, you have to maintain rugged individualism. You cannot change the status quo, the hierarchy, by rejecting rugged individualism. They push that narrative on us because they want to maintain the status quo. And it's evident, you know, when is the 1% ever flipped to the bottom? When is the bottom of it? Like that never happens in America. You never get a class of people, the Hispanics or the Mexicans or the blacks ever being on top. It's always the white. Why is that? So let me give you an example, and I'll end with this. It's an example that I not always, but I rarely share, but it makes so much sense. Take Major League Sports, the NFL, NBA, whatever. Yeah, all of these teams are owned by billionaires, right? Now, in order to keep a competitive quality product for us to keep buying tickets, like the Yankees, who are in a big market, they will outcompete the Oakland A's because they just have more money, right? So imagine a league where the Yankees, who won more World Series, more championships than any team in any league, imagine if they got to pick the first draft pick every year. Or the Patriots were picking, after they won the Super Bowl, they got to pick the best player every year, right? That's capitalism, right? But instead, because, they're smart, they're billionaires, right? So they get a say, right? We're going to take our team out if you don't follow these rules, which is that if you are first, you pick last. That is equality, right? But it doesn't happen in our society. Why is it good for billionaires to flip it so that there's a balance from the bottom up every single year? But when it comes to us doing it as individuals, it's socialism. And I ask anybody that thinks that what we have here is balance, because where's the opportunity for us? When do we get to choose from the pie that they've stolen all of this land? They had the Homestead Act, where go west, young man, and whatever you can farm is yours, never given to us as black people. The GI Bill, it revolutionized financing, where you had to pay 50% down on a home. Now you pay 10% down. It wasn't given to us as black people. Land is the biggest wealth builder in our country, but it's never given to us. And now that it's there, it's locked into the status quo, which rugged individualism supports. And until you start to think about your neighbor and community, you will never fix that system. So I'll ask your friend that. Like, when does capitalism ever give, not you as an individual, but you as a people, and because you were shameful of the status of your people being on the bottom, that you said, no, I don't want to be a part of that because I'm shameful of that. So I want to be a rugged individual and I like Trump. That's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. If they can answer that, then I say, okay, I get you. I don't agree with you, but at least you understand what you're doing. So this is the kind of rants I gave on the street. This is why I'm standing up. This is what I used to do when I'm screaming at those buildings. You remember, Jesse?
I do remember.
Yeah. That's what I like saying.
I'd love to have you meet. You'd really have a great conversation with this guy, man. This dude knows the history, man. I'm telling you. Okay. Well, if he knows the history, then I ask him, when has capitalism ever done us as a people good? So he should know that. Show me that history, and I'll be like, oh, there we go. All right, let's repeat that. Let's repeat that. Show me where we've done it. Where capitalism has given us. Anyway, here I go. Don't get me started, Jay. Don't get me started. All right. So I think we should wrap it up on that note. What is it? 8? Oh wow, we went really long. I was gonna do this. Was supposed to be a 15-minute live stream. I knew better. I'm just saying. Yeah, when we talk, it's always. Yeah, this is us. Yeah, so many great comments. That memory of McCarran. We would have just one more memory, Jesse, that I really loved after those meetings at McCarran outside in the field, that first summer, and after we wrapped it up and the music was playing, and you and I were having these conversations, and you were telling me about cynicism, and it was like beautiful. So this is yeah. All right. So anybody else wants to say anything? Otherwise, I will wrap it up with a prayer. Or anybody has an open mic that you want a rhyme or words that you want to share? Anything?
Did I share? It bothers me how they dishonor me in this economy.
No, share it.
I think I did that one before.
Well, do it again.
It bothers me, dishonor me in this economy. Still don't have what they promised me since they've been conning me. Promised me the American dream, but schemes of poverty encompass me. They've been living long. It bothers me how they dishonor me in this economy. So I don't have what they promised me since they've been conning me. Promised me the American dream, but schemes of poverty encompass me. They've been living long. I forgot my own words.
I do remember that one though, by the way. I do remember that.
You do?
Yeah, you said it to me in the car as well about a couple of weeks ago.
I thought I did.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I know we're not prepared. I have a few that I would like to share, but next time, we always have a next time next week. So with that, I'm going to end in a prayer, and I'd like to do to the God beat, to the God beat, to the God beat, to the God beat. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us here. Thank you, Lord, for lending your ear to us to alleviate this fear. We are here leading up to election. We hope that you will be with us to show us mercy and grace for each other, to show us a way for each other, to show us how to pray for each other. Thank you for bringing us through the storm, Milton. A sign, is it or is it not, that we need to take care of our planet? It's getting hot. We want to make sure that we are here today, here tomorrow, custodians of this world. We won't have that sorrow. I know, Lord, I love you, God. You are the one, you are the model. From the bottom up, we want to be your son. So be with us as we go through another week. Thank you for making us the meek. Show us how to share and to pray for our brothers, our community, each and every day. My name is Trev. We got Kurt and Jesse here to pray for you, to show you that we are here free. And as I close this day, this week, be with all of those who look and seek for your love, unselfish, selfless. I pray to you today, be with us all the way. Peace and blessings. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next week here on the People's Mic. And thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Kurt. And until next time, peace and blessings.